50 years ago, an incredible sneaker was made. It was made for runners, but then everyone started rocking them. 50 years ago, a culture was being created. At first, no one gave it a chance. Then, it became a worldwide phenomenon. The people who created the culture wore sneakers. This episode is how the two combined, and how a third came along for the ride, or run. Check it out.
Yo, this is Reg Ferguson, Fashion Geek #1. How are you? So guess what? I'm doing a solo joint today. But it's a little special because it's not strictly audio. I'm doing video as well, y'all. It's pretty cool. But bear with me. Be gentle. So, how did a sneaker made for track runners in the Olympics become one of the more popular sneakers of all time? Do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I'm going to try to keep it a mystery for a little bit. In 1968, it was the Mexico City Olympics. Supposed to have been amazing. I actually know an OG who went in his Volkswagen van. I thought it was pretty cool. Big shout out to Marvin Vipler. Bob Beamon broke the high jump record there. It's pretty awesome. Two guys decided that track runners needed better support, essentially a better shoe. One of the guys you may know. One of the guys you may not. Who were they? Phil Knight, a.k.a. Shoe Dog, a book I recommend, and Bill Bowerman, track and field coach at the University of Oregon. They made a sneaker that, based on the popularity of the 1968 Olympics, they had ready for the 1972 Olympics, which was in Germany. And as you probably know, that became an infamous Summer Olympics. The sneaker was called the Aztec. It's a pretty cool name. Adidas didn't think so because they had a sneaker already called the Azteca. So they were threatening to sue. So these two guys decided to call it, I think they called it the Mexico. And that was going to stick. But I think because of the Adidas beef, they decided to do something even better. They decided to call this sneaker the Cortez, after Hernan Cortez, the Spanish conquistador that ruined the Aztec nation. Take that, take that. So what are we talking about, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, the Nike Cortez, one of the coolest sneakers ever designed. I'm going to explain to you why. First of all, 72? I didn't know it was out that long. My recollection starts in the 80s. At that time, living here in New York City and starting to live with my grandparents up in the Bronx, a culture was being created. A culture that would start in the 5 boroughs, but specifically in the Bronx, and then go throughout the country and ultimately the world. We're talking about hip-hop. And for me, because I'm old school, hip-hop means rap, means breakdancing, means graffiti, means DJing. I know it's interchangeable now, and I get that, and I do the same thing myself. But for this episode, that formation makes a lot of sense for me. In the 80s, when I was going to school, I was a preppy. And there was this cool kid. His name was Julian Calnesian. Castle Hill Projects. If anyone knows of him, please connect him to me. I have never seen him since. I have thought about him often. Julian was a cool kid. And for some reason, he took a liking to me and I to him. He was a heck of a lot more popular than I was. And I thought he was a cool guy. And we became really good friends. I saw these sneakers he had on, and they were Nikes. Now, in New York, I like to think we're a Nike city, but we're also an Adidas city. We were a Converse city. Heck, and then in the 80s, these foreign brands start coming in. Fila, Lotto. So we've always had a diversity. But Nike in New York, definitely, and Adidas too, but Nike in New York have a strong connect. And he had on these cool sneakers. And I knew I was going to get a pair of sneakers soon. I think my grandpa was going to hook me up. So I was like, wow, those sneakers are cool. He goes, man, you got to get some. Okay. They're Nikes. All right. Yeah. All right. I got it. So I went to Modell's with my grandpa. Got to go to Mo's. I knew them before they had that motto. So we go, and I see these cool Nikes, nylon, blue suede toe, but a gray silver stripe. And I thought that was so cool, and a waffle bottom. And if you know anything about Nike, they're known for a waffle bottom. So I'm in. I'm like, man, can't wait to rock these. I take them to school, put them on. Julian sees them, and he looks down, and he just shakes his head. I couldn't have felt more disappointed because of his disappointment. I had failed. I didn't have the Cortez. I can't remember the exact model of Nikes I had. And if you've ever checked out my one and only blog post on my website, which has to change according to my SEO freelancer, otherwise I'm toast. I think I wrote the name down in the blog. But the bottom line was I wasn't cool like Julian. And I was really bummed out. Fast forward, within that same school year, I got some nickels and dimes put together, some dollars, and I went sneaker shopping on my own. Probably with my best friend of all time, Darryl Walker. And I got the leather Cortez. That's right. The classics. White leather, red stripe, white and blue outer sole. I brought him to school. Julian gave me the nod and he smiled. I was in heaven. Because now I was official, y'all. I was a b-boy. Julian was a break dancer. I was not that guy. But dancing, yeah, doing the Smurf, doing all the Webo, all those things at the roller skating rink, that I could rock. Practiced all the time. So those Nikes were my entree into hip-hop culture. What I find really fascinating about those sneakers is that the Cortez and hip-hop, essentially, they grew up together. They're intertwined. Hip-hop just celebrated a 50th anniversary. These Cortez, essentially 50-some-odd years old. Who would have thought? So I'm going to tell you a story. I have a friend whose daughter maybe still works for Nike. And big shout out to Rebecca and big shout out to Robin Brown, her mom. And one day I was hanging out with Rob on a Saturday and I looked down and I jumped. She had the classics on, y'all. The classics. Oh, the leather joints. Now, remember, the nylons are classics too, but it took me back to my childhood. I had sworn to myself that I would never revisit a pair of sneakers. Dunks, first generation. Jordans, never worn. I'm a Knicks fan. Take that. But I looked at those Cortez and I fell back in love. I went back into a simpler time. And I said to myself, if there was ever a sneaker, I remember saying that to her too, to revisit would be those. This is pre-COVID. I'm doing some business out in Philly and I'm killing time. And I'm in Center City and I'm in downtown. I'm in their fashion district, right on Broad. And I saw a Nike factory outlet store. Went in, just checking out stuff. And I saw them, y'all. The Cortez. I tried a few till I found the ones in the right size. Went up to the counter. Sister asked me if I had the app. I did. And lo and behold, my app had like a 20, 30, 40% coupon. So I freaking scored. And I fit that box into my luggage. I I had taken the Amtrak down to Philly. I had fallen in love with it again. I had fallen in love again. It was so cool. What makes them classic? Well, again, you have the nylon, and my friend Julian had the navy with the suede toe with the white stripe and the white and blue outer sole. Dope. I had, again, the white, and they sparkled. And they really sparkled when I was a kid in the 80s. Why? Because anybody living in New York City knew you had to keep your sneakers fresh. So how'd you do that? Well, you carried a rag, you carried a toothbrush, and you carried a bottle of Kiwi liquid polish. My grandparents would look at me. I'd be in the bathroom after school, scrubbing away. I also used a little comment. Yeah, man, spread that polish on. I was good to go. Because it was all about being fresh. I wanted to be fresh. I'm so happy that I got these sneakers again. When I rock them, and particularly when I'm on the train and I see younger cats with them on, I give them the nod because it's game recognized. I just think I don't know. I can't help it. And if you're watching, you could see it. It just brings me back to a super duper time. I just am so impressed how a sneaker can make a transition like that. But speaking of transitions, here's some words from the OG that are very, very concerning. So I was in my neighborhood and I was going past Luana's Tavern. Big shout out to Enrique Meron, the owner. He's always checking me out. He scans me for everything. Hey, you got that watch there? Or, yo, look at that belt. He sees my Cortez and he goes, oh, you got the Gumps, yo. The Gumps? What? Forrest Gumps? This is what people call my beloved Nike Cortez? Gumps? Okay, I want to be clear here. Yeah, I saw the movie. I like the movie. I remember the scene. Jenna gives Forrest the Nikes. I remember all that, and he runs across the country, and then people following him, and it's cool, and then he just stops running. I remember all of that. The movie came out in 94. What I'm saying is, here's a sneaker that started in a subculture, then went to another subculture, and now is part of popular culture. That's what time does, y'all. But I hate when people call them Gumps. They're Cortez. Give them respect. It's so freaking annoying. But if you're much younger, why wouldn't you call them that? But my whole point is, ladies and gentlemen, please let us never, never forget the impact that these sneakers had on the hip-hop culture. They always have, and they always will. And it's a testament to the sneaker that it can straddle multiple cultures. So here's a question. If you ever had them, would you rock them again? And do you think that'd make you fashion confused or fashion confident? I think you already know the answer. It's the reason why I got them twice. I think it's some French song, right? Edith Piaf, Falling in Love Again. I did it, y'all. And so can you. Always be fly.